this might seem like maybe a far-fetched because the zone fighter, but Canelo doesn't have an opponent yet for May. You know, that's something I would imagine would be very, very much.
How far is May away?
Could you?
How far is May away though?
We're in February, March, April, May.
So that means take half a month off after a 3.5 month camp and then go right back to work, right? Just so they can try and get me when I'm overworked. So you control the narrative, then you control the media. They make an offer knowing that I just fought. So when we say no, then it seems like I'm ducking them. You control the narrative, you control the media. Don't let them fool you. Like I said, yeah, I'm a world champion. I'm a world-class fighter. I'm on my time. This is CP time.
That boy's
So
that boy's fought.
that means Caleb Plant's time. Just saying. So you know, they want me to take half a month off and then get right back to work after 3.5 month camp and 6 weeks of pre-camp. Like I said, don't be fooled. So we're gonna get to him. He got fights left on his contract. Why doesn't he go beat Billy Joe and Callum and become unified, and then I'll whoop on David and I'll become unified, and then we can fight for all the marbles? That sounds a little better to me.
What's good? It's your boy 2K here. For this one, we're going to talk a little bit about Caleb Plant. Mans is in a dilemma right now. But first, I want to give a shout out to the whole 3kingsboxing.com crew, all of our affiliates, and everybody who's rocking with us. Caleb Plant, man. So, just last night in his hometown of Nashville, Tennessee, he beat the hell out of that cat finger butt. Easy work, no problems, en route to a 10th round knockout, right? But as we reported on 3kingsboxing.com a few weeks prior to that fight, Canelo is having trouble finding somebody for his May date, his annual May date, right? He has 2 annual dates, May and September. Cinco de Mayo weekend and Mexican Independence Day, right? Last year, he had to forego the Mexican Independence Day date, right? Because he couldn't find an opponent. Ended up fighting Sergey Kovalev in November instead. And then this year, he might have to forego the Cinco de Mayo date because the guys he was targeting, Ryota Murata, Billy Joe Saunders, and Callum Smith, none of them want to fuck with him. Probably because he's lowballing the shit out of him. That's speculation, right? That's speculation. We don't really know what's going on. But that's probably the situation, right? So it's kind of looking like Canelo is no longer that powerful entity that he once was, or that a lot of people thought he was, right? So there was a rumor that he was eyeing Caleb Plant to do a 2-month turnaround after his fight last night, right? And the reason why we say 2 months is because he would have March, April, right? Then the fight would be early May. So it would be a 2-month turnaround, maybe a 2-month and a couple of week turnaround after his recovery period from the Vincent finger butt fight, right? You know what I'm saying? And Caleb Plant last night, shout out to my man Big Cool. He covered the fight last night, representing 3kingsboxing.com in Nashville, you know what I'm saying? He was at the post-fight presser, caught some footage of Caleb Plant basically saying, there's no way in hell I'm gonna take this fight in such a quick turnaround, right? He said something along the lines of he had a 3-week training camp, a 6-week pre-camp, right? Something to that effect. And you're talking about him having like a couple of weeks off and recovery, then he's got to get right back in the gym to prepare for Canelo. He said he's not doing that. He also mentioned the Canelo agenda. Obviously, he's been following what Canelo likes to do, right? Or at least Team Canelo. He said they're going to basically try to control the narrative, right? They're basically going to say, oh man, he's ducking us. We made him an offer and he said no. Caleb Plant is saying, hell, if I say no, it's because I don't have enough time to prepare. It has nothing to do with ducking him. I have to have time for my body to recover in order for me to take a fight of that magnitude, right? Now, here's the thing. Sergey Kovalev is suffering from the same problem right now. Remember, they were talking about fighting Sergey Kovalev when Sergey Kovalev was in talks, or at least in negotiations, to fight Anthony Yarde, right? They decided to forego the Canelo Alvarez fight, right? And fight Anthony Yarde anyway. But there was a stipulation on that. The stipulation was Sergey Kovalev would be ready for a November date, even after fighting Anthony Yarde in August, right? Now, remember, after that fight, Sergey Kovalev had a grueling ass, I believe, 10 or 11 rounds of that fight before he ended up knocking out Anthony Yarde with a jab. So, when that fight was over, Kovalev was like, you know, I might not be ready to take this fight in such quick a turnaround. But that money ended up being the ultimate persuader. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't overlook the money. The Russian pussy he was gonna get from that money. You know what I'm saying? Whole lot of shit was gonna happen for Sergey Kovalev. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't no longer have to beat his women to get some. He got the money now. He got that Canelo money, right? So the situation changed. He said, you know what? Fuck it. I'll be ready. I'll be ready for November. A 2-month turnaround, I could do that. And he did it. Now, a lot of cats is out there like, oh man, you know, it's the biggest payday of his life. You know, it's a situation where it was the best decision because he never made no type of money like that, right? But here's the deal. Money's not everything. And to give you an example of how money's not everything, Sergey Kovalev is now out here in these motherfucking streets complaining about how Team Canelo purposely only wanted to fight him with such a short turnaround. Now he's out here regretting his decision, even though he got the biggest payday of his life. You see what I'm saying? So money's not everything. And Caleb Plant here in this situation, like I said, he follows what's going on. He knows what Team Canelo has been doing, right? So he understands, hey, they're not gonna do this shit to me. And he's trying to keep himself from being like Sergey Kovalev. There's so many situations you can look at. I mean, there's so many sub situations, right? But two of the biggest ones are Caleb Plant can elect to unify against David Benavidez next, right? Which will ultimately bring him a step closer to becoming the first undisputed champion at 168 pounds in boxing history, right? That's if he beats Benavidez. That's if he's able to get a Billy Joe Saunders fight, if Billy Joe's still the champion by then. And then it gives him opportunity, if he can get the opportunity, to fight Callum Smith for the WBA super champion, right? Canelo's only the WBA regular champion, right? You have to unify against the super champion. So that belt wouldn't matter. You see what I'm saying? So that's one scenario. The other scenario is Caleb Plant can just take the Canelo fight, have the same mindset of Sergey Kovalev, which isn't a wrong mindset. The only time it's wrong is if you're going to have regrets later, like Sergey is having right now, right? He could just take the money, basically sell his because Caleb Plant's not beating Canelo. There's a lot of motherfuckers out there saying Caleb Plant beats Canelo. Listen, man, a lot of these cats are niggas I fuck with, right? I'm telling them, and I'm telling everybody else who says this, Caleb Plant does not beat Canelo Alvarez. It will not happen. Yes, Canelo does not like slick fighters. Yes, you know, he likes fighters that come forward, don't have much defense, not doing a lot of head movement. Definitely doesn't like fighters that like to use the ring. I agree with that 100%. But you gotta understand, it's Canelo. This is the same guy that was beaten 10 rounds, right? 10 rounds to Floyd Mayweather. He arguably won 2 to 3 rounds, and a judge still called that fight a draw. And understand, this is the Canelo before he was the Canelo of today. That Canelo that fought Floyd Mayweather in 2013, he was not the Canelo of today. He did not have the star power. He wasn't the cash cow, right? So he's got even much more influence today over the judges, right, than he did when he fought Floyd Mayweather. And at the time, Floyd Mayweather was that dude. And he still had better influence than Floyd Mayweather did. You lose 10 out of 12 fucking rounds. I mean, these were 10 clear rounds. Clearly lost. They weren't 10 close rounds that could have gone either way. He clearly lost, right? Same thing, in my opinion, with Erislandy Lara. In my opinion, he clearly lost that fight. Yeah, there were rounds you could have gave Canelo because Lara was on his bicycle, basically. But that's his style. It's the same kind of style that Caleb Plant has. And I will say this, Erislandy Lara of 2014 was much better, 10 times better at that style than Caleb Plant is at that style in 2020. I put my money on that shit, dog. Caleb Plant is nowhere near what Erislandy Lara was in 2014. And the judges still gave the fight to Canelo. Hell, Levy Martinez's scorecard was 117, 111 for Canelo. For you dumb niggas out there, that's 9 rounds to 3. You know what I'm saying? Basically said he washed the fight. He washed it. Caleb Plant would elect to do the same thing. So how would Caleb Plant be able to overcome a Canelo that has much more star power, right, than the Canelo of 2014, and overcome something that Erislandy Lara couldn't even do back then? So there's no way that Caleb Plant wins this fight, right? So he would be basically selling his O for money. Now here's my take. Sure, go ahead and get you a little 5 million, 3 million. That's probably what they're gonna offer him, right? Go ahead and get that. Sell your O, get your first loss, right? Problem is, you lose out on the opportunity to unify. Because like I said, Canelo's a WBA regular champion. Hell, even if you do win, you still can't unify. You gotta fight Callum Smith to get the real WBA title, right? And when I say unify, I'm talking about unify en route to become undisputed. Make your unification count. Sure, he would have a WBA regular and an IBF title, but that unification doesn't count towards undisputed. He would still have to fight for the WBA super champion, or hope that Callum Smith maybe fucking vacates the title and moves up to light heavyweight, and the WBA fucking promotes Caleb Plant with that WBA regular title if he were to beat Canelo to super champion. But either way, he would have to fight for it. There had to be some type of action taken that he would have to get that WBA super championship, right, in order to become undisputed at 168. This is ultimately the goal that Caleb Plant wants, right? He wants his name written in history in that aspect, and I agree with him. So it would be a complete 100% money fight. But think about this. If he fights David Benavidez, a fight that I think he can win, but I don't think he wins. I got Benavidez winning that fight, but I think he can beat David Benavidez. Given the right fucking moon, you know what I'm saying? The right time of the year, the right time of the day, you know what I'm saying? He could beat David Benavidez. And let's go the happy path. Let's say he beats David Benavidez, becomes IBF WBC champion. Now he's got more leverage at the negotiation table for a Canelo fight in the future. When Canelo was going to offer him $3 million now it just turned into $5 or $6 million because he's an IBF and WBC champion at 168. He'd be the only unified champion at 168. To be quite honest with you, if Caleb Plant defeats David Benavidez, a guy that has exceptional fucking skill, a guy that, in my opinion, can actually hang in there with Canelo if they fought, right? I don't really think Golden Boy would be looking at Caleb Plant anymore if he ended up beating David Benavidez. That's just real talk. That's another sub situation in this whole container of the Canelo Caleb Plant situation, right? That's something else you gotta look at. But happy path only. That's more money Caleb Plant can negotiate with at the table. But fuck Canelo at that point. Now you can negotiate more money against Callum Smith and against Billy Joe Sanders, right? Because that's the real goal you're looking for any fucking way, is to be the first undisputed super middleweight champion in boxing history. That's really what you're working towards anyway, right? So if you beat David Benavidez, now you got way more leverage over Callum Smith and Billy Joe Sanders at the negotiation table. In my opinion, the best route is to try to go through David Benavidez on both fronts, man. On both fronts. Because if he loses to Canelo, while losing to Canelo is not necessarily a bad thing, it's almost like he's got to start all over again, right? If he loses to David Benavidez, kind of the same deal, but that's a better fight for him in which that he has more of an opportunity to win. As I said, there's no way he's beating Canelo. They're going to dictate 100% of the terms. They're already trying to dictate a fucking 2-month and maybe 1 or 2 week turnaround for this nigga to take the fight. They're already dictating that. What else more you think they're going to dictate? Everything, man. They're going to dictate the fucking ringside bitches. You know what I'm saying? They're going to dictate if this motherfucker can do anything in his life, bro. Before that fight. You can't do shit. Don't forget the rehydration clauses either they like to put on cats. They're going to make sure that's there. They're going to dictate every goddamn thing, all the way down to the type of drawers Caleb Plant is wearing before the fight. Hold on, man, that's Fruit of the Loom. Nah, nigga, we need you to wear these Hanes. You know what I'm saying? We need you to wear these Hanes, dog, that got Canelo's face on it. I'm just saying. That's what they're going to do to him. And that leads up to the judges and everything else. The fucking, the referee allowing certain shit in the ring. They're going to dictate everything. Caleb Plant has a slim to none chance. And we're not even talking about style, man. We're talking about all of the out of the ring shit that Canelo would dictate. Then when we do put in style in the fray, like I said, Canelo, while I thought he lost to Erislandy Lara, he still did get to Erislandy Lara in that fight. He still got to him. He still won rounds, right? Caleb Plant is no Erislandy Lara of 2014, man. Nowhere near. So he's not going to be able to elude Canelo for 12 rounds. I don't think he eludes Canelo for 2 minutes of a 3-minute round. He doesn't. He's gonna get caught. Canelo is a smart fighter, a much smarter fighter than he was when he fought Erislandy Lara in 2014. A much smarter fighter. This is the Canelo after Floyd, the Canelo that has learned so much after Floyd. The head movement, the counter punching, the jabbing, right? Setting up his uppercut, his money punch, right? He's learned so much after Floyd. He's an excellent fighter. Not only is he an excellent fighter, this motherfucker has everybody in the bag. Everybody in the bag. You got niggas out here saying that Sergey Kovalev took a dive. If you believe that, that supports my shit even more, right? So I said earlier in this video that Canelo might not have the power that we all think he has. When it comes to making fights, he does. In terms of that opponent has already signed on the dotted line. The fight's being made. Negotiations have ceased. Now the date is set. Both fighters are ready. They're going into training camp. At that point, at the negotiation table on, Canelo's got all the power. But if his opponents are saying no to his demands and they walk away from the fight, that's where he might not have all the power that he thought he had, right? So in this situation, if Caleb Plant if he were to sign on that dotted line, man, there's no way he beats Canelo Alvarez. But he has a 50% chance, and a lot of cats will say more than that, to defeat David Benavidez. In both situations, he loses everything, has to start all over again, right? But there is probably a 95% probability that he will definitely lose everything to Canelo Alvarez, compared to maybe a 50% probability that he loses everything to David Benavidez. So what's the better choice? On top of that, 50% probability, if he wins, he is moving closer to undisputed.
Otherwise, he could take the route of fighting another motherfucker on the same level as Vincent Fingerbutt. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the IBF rankings, number 1 and number 2 is vacant. Fingerbutt was number 3. Next up, former IBF champion Caleb Truax. Ew. If you look at the rankings from number 4 all the way down to 15, there'd be a bunch of motherfuckers you never heard of that are on the same level as Fingerbutt. So I understand that David Benavidez has been mandated by the WBC to fight Avni Yildirim. Now, Avni Yildirim is the cat that Anthony Durrell won the WBC title off of on a technicality, while David Benavidez was a champion in recess because he was snorting that Brooke Shields, right? So, but then of course David Benavidez came out of that, took his belt back from Anthony Durrell. Now Anthony Yildirim is up for the WBC. But as we all know, unifications do trump mandatories, right? Caleb Plant already fulfilled his mandatory. So the IBF, the most strict of the 4 major sanctioning bodies when it comes to mandatories, they're not going to say nothing right now. They're going to let him do what he do. The WBC, which is the most lenient of the 4 major sanctioning bodies as it pertains to mandatories, if the money's right, they're going to get a little bit out of the table. If Caleb Plant and David Benavidez can come to the negotiation table and come to an agreement, WBC ain't going to say shit about that. Abner Yildirim will wait for the winner of that fight. It's exactly what will go down. So what I'm saying here is, if Caleb Plant wants an opportunity to gain something more than just money on an even playing field to where he has a much higher probability of winning, you want to take the David Benavidez route.
You tell me what's the better choice. Do what you do in the comment section. Let me know what you think. We got the podcast every Monday and Thursday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Pacific. Shout out to everybody that's fucking with us, man. You know what it is. Until then, one.